careful you must be when sensing the future, Anakin. The fear of loss is a path to the dark side.
So, as we all know, the Grandmaster Yoda has deeply subjected himself into the light side of the Force for hundreds of years. Even as time passes and new threats arise, he never yearns for more power or even attempts to understand the dark side, stating that it is really just a path to suffering, something that he wouldn't even wish on his worst enemy, let alone himself. But out of Yoda's whole species, why did none of them ever turn to the dark side? Especially since all of his kind have been confirmed to be Force sensitive, while heavily leaning towards the light side, just like we see with other great Jedi like Master Yaddle, who we haven't seen much of, but we know from the comics and novels that she has overcome some great feats in her time. But it should be noted that in both canon and legends we have seen one of Yoda's kind slightly being pulled to the dark side, like in the case of Grogu, who is 50 years old but is still in his infancy stage, allowing him to be easily seduced to the dark side. And one memorable moment from the show where we see this in effect is when Mando is arm wrestling Cara Dune, and he sees this as a threat, so he begins to force choke her until she lets go, which is definitely not a move of any light side wielder, but he manages to pull back his emotions, cause we even later see him use a Force heal, which requires a very deep connection to the light side of the Force. Now, going back to Yoda, there was one time in the Clone Wars where he was tempted with the powers of the dark side. You see, he was searching an old Sith temple for answers due to him feeling blinded by the dark side at the time. This is when he was met by a dark vision. While he did allow it to show him what he could become, what he seen would pull him back to the light and out of the vision, proving to himself that he could never be tempted by the dark or the power that it brings. But that wasn't the case for the Legends character Minch, who was a Jedi Knight 700 years before the Battle of Yavin. Now, where most of Yoda's kind sought to strengthen their connections to the Force, learning all the knowledge that it can offer, Minch decided that he would fully commit to being the best light side duelist he could be. Being a bit younger in age, he was brash and almost lost his life taking on a Sith all on his own, simply as a means to prove himself, which was not a quality of the Jedi, but he never gave up that bold combat style and need to prove himself. So the next time he ran into a Sith, he decided to even the playing field a bit by slightly tapping into the dark side as a means to overwhelm him in combat. Although he was able to pull himself back to the light, the rest of the Jedi were not pleased with his actions, so he vowed to never interact with the dark side again, as he even felt it blinding him during battle as well. But it still begs the question as to why they were all able to tap into the dark side but easily come back to the light, when others are easily corrupted by the dark and never come back. I think the simplest answer would be their age, or more so the rate that they age, which allows them to understand that people will come and go, but the Force is forever, giving them a more positive outlook on life as a whole, and not really allowing them to have deep connections to the ones around them. So in the end, I do think that it's fully possible for one of them to join the dark side, but it is highly unlikely as they are very grounded creatures by nature. And with that being said, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, then consider subscribing for more.